and welcome to the Great Show. And I'm your host, Dr. Anthony L. Gant here on IntellectualRadio.com. And you can call in and ask questions probably after about 30 minutes after we're on the show, 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953. And tonight, you know that we interview independent authors from around the country. And tonight we have an independent author from New Jersey, the great state of New Jersey. Her name is Melissa Cohen. And Melissa, are you here with us today?
I am.
Thank you for phone with us today, everyone. So she's calling in. Everyone don't come into the studio because everybody can't fly in. They're busy doing things around the world. So this is doing a lot of big things around in the New Jersey area. So without any further ado, Melissa is the author of the book, The Road to Finding Yourself. So she's going to give us a little information. So before we get started, let's welcome Melissa Cohen to the show. Hello, Melissa.
Hi.
Okay, so go ahead, Melissa. So tell us, who is Melissa Cohen before we get into the book?
So I am a life coach. I kind of fell into life coaching by accident. It wasn't intentional.
Okay.
But what happened was about 10 years ago, I started, going through my own stuff. And, I had been to different therapists and different whatever, and really nothing was helping.
Okay.
And I stumbled upon this particular teaching. It's called Innate Health, or the Three Principles. And it just helped me in a way nothing else did. And about 2 years into learning it, I had a friend who was going through, I thought my problems were bad, her problems were worse than bad. And I couldn't fix her problems because they were just not problems that could be fixed. It was just certain circumstances were what they were. Mm-hmm. And I just knew if I would teach her this, it would help her.
Okay.
And it was such a miraculous recovery as far as how to handle her life at that point, and how to find her wisdom, and how to find herself, and her ability to be happy, and her ability to, interact with people without being upset and angry all the time. And she kind of found her place within her circumstances. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said I kind of fell into it by accident. And I saw what happened with her and with me, and with many, many other people that I wasn't the teacher of, but that I had seen help. I started training, and then I started teaching. And I am a certified life coach, but I really feel like more of a teacher.
Okay.
Because I'm teaching people something which is basically how to find their own wisdom, their own ability to be happy, no matter what the circumstances, because we can't control life.
That's right.
And a lot of times you go someplace and they're like, okay, let's fix the circumstances. Well, guess what? New ones are going to pop up. We're not going to find the stress-free, problem-free life. I don't care what you are, who you are. It doesn't exist. Right. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of times we're promised that, and it's not a promise that anyone could keep. You just understand how to cope with life on life's terms, I like to call it.
Right.
You get through life a little easier. And you're not dependent on quote unquote no problems. You don't need to, I work with addictions, I work with anorexia, I work with stress, I work with everything. Why? Because once you learn how to deal with life, you don't need the drugs, right? You don't need the anger, because a lot of that is coping mechanisms of how to deal with pain and how to deal with stress. So you just, you want to drown out what's going on in your body. And you do that with outside things, right?
Yes.
But a lot of times if people can just, which is one of my other quotes that I like to say, get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, and I don't always have to fix the feeling, then I don't have to do a lot of the stuff that I do, because the feeling is going to pass anyway. We all know that we don't feel bad forever. We don't feel good forever either.
Right.
Because feelings don't work like that. Like they just don't work. So if you could just have the patience to wait it out, then it passes. And you don't need like all the stuff that you do to help it along. And in fact, like we know, when we do things to help the feeling along, what usually happens? The feeling stays longer. Because naturally, we kind of, our bodies know how to self-heal. right? If you cut your finger and you start picking at it to get it to heal quicker, what happens?
It takes longer.
It's infected.
Yeah, it's getting infected, right?
Right. It gets infected. So the same thing with your mind, with your emotions, with your feeling pain in the body. If you start trying to fix it, instead of just letting the body do what it naturally does, which is really heal itself, then you you really make the process much harder than it has to be. Right. And that just goes back to saying that life on life's terms means that we have problems and we feel pain. We really can never, people don't like when I say that. Sometimes when I'm working with new clients, they're like, wait, I thought you were going to stop all that. And I was like, the people before me told you that, and here you are, which means we didn't stop
it. So you're here with me now, right?
Exactly. So, and you know what? People are so comforted when you tell them the truth.
Yeah.
People want to hear the truth, even if they don't like it, right? Because, like, I didn't love it when I was finally realized life on life's terms meant I'm going to always have problems, right? Like, I didn't love that. But, it was such a pressure off my soul almost, because I kept thinking I'm doing something wrong because more problems keep arising. And if I was doing this thing right, like I wouldn't have them. And I'm not alone in that. I'm really not alone in that. Right. And when people find out, wow, like I'm not screwing up as much as I thought, right? This is how life really works. Their resiliency and their ability to just roll with the punches just comes out. Yes. Because we get punched.
That's true. We all get punched.
I wish they didn't.
I like how you said that, Melissa, because I think a lot of times it takes a lot of us a lot longer to realize that we won't have any problems, that we're going to have to always deal with something in life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the shocker when you're younger. You can't wait to get out of mama, daddy's house and live your life. And next thing you know, by the time you're 21, 22, you seem like you have all these problems and what's going on. Life is treating me so unfair. And and then you realize people that's 20 years older than you, they're dealing with things too, and 40 years older than you, and everybody's dealing with something, some problems they have to always fix. I was sharing with my daughter the other day, and my son as well, that even though right now you're in your 20s, trust me, you won't fix your future just because you fix this one problem. You're going to have something to deal with at 29, 32, 35. It's just the way life is, and the sooner you accept that, I think the better off you may be for yourself. Right. So I liked how you state that. So let me ask you this. Yeah. I know you, that's based on your book, and obviously we talk somewhat about some of the other things you just mentioned. The road to finding yourself. I mean, I love what you have there as far as what you talk about as far as the road to finding yourself. When you think about it, being a coach, when did it come to you that, hey, I need to find myself, or I found myself? I mean, what was the light bulb for you to have you get on that road and find you?
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you a funny story about how this book got named, how the title came. Mm-hmm. So I had been teaching an 18-year-old boy who had ADHD. He was very ADHD, which means he was very hyper. And he kept getting thrown out of school. And he just couldn't get it together, and it's not my fault, right? Like, he bought into the label a little bit of that he can't sit still and whatever. So I started working with him. And, just talking to him about his own ability to, quiet his own mind down and find his resiliency and find his inner wisdom, and that he's not, he doesn't have to buy into this label. Yes, he might be more hyper than others, but it doesn't define him as I can never sit down, right? Like he all of a sudden decided that's what it meant. Okay. So at a certain point, he really calmed down, and he looks at me and he said, "Why am I able to sit down for 2 hours with you?" Because we were doing what we call an intensive, and it's about a 4-day program, and we sit for about an hour and a half, and then we break, and we sit for another hour and a half, and we just talk. And he was like, why am I able to sit down for an hour and a half and not get up? He's like, where did my ADHD go? So I said,
where did it go, huh?
I said, it's still there, but you're not paying so much attention to it. And you're not thinking that you have to move now. because you're quote unquote ADHD. So anyway, it happened to be a family member of mine that I was that teaching that this boy was. And when I was trying to think of titles for the book, he came over to me and he's like, The Road to Finding Yourself. He said, that's the title. I said, why are you saying that? He said, I found myself. He said, I found that I wasn't the person I thought, and I could be normal. I could stay in school. I could not get in trouble in class. And he's older now. It's 2 years later, and he's doing great. He has a business. He's a person. He's going to be getting engaged soon.
Oh, wow.
He's really amazing. And believe me, he wasn't that. He wasn't on that road of being this amazing boy that he is today, man now. Mm-hmm. So when he said it to me, I said, that's exactly perfect. I said, I also found myself. I didn't think of it like that until he said it. He's like, it's so obvious. He's like, it's so obvious. How did you not think of that right away? I was like, well, that's what you're here for. You're able to give me the title.
Right.
So this is from a young boy, well, a man. And, and when he said it, I was like, it's what it is. We just find ourselves and ourselves being that capable person that can handle their life is honestly what it means. That can handle their life. Because most of us think we can't. And that's when we get so overwhelmed. I get parents that tell me, I have the wrong kid. God made a mistake. Or whatever, the creator or the universe, whatever you want to call it. But in other words, I'll be like, you really didn't get the wrong kid. You got the right kid, and you know how to handle this kid. You really do. We just got to find you, because when we find you, we're going to find your ability to handle this child. And we do, and the parents that come to me for parenting, the same type of thing. They just, all that changes in them is their own ability to trust themselves and honestly trust their kids. Because, we have wisdom and an ability to cope, and so do the kids. So a lot of times we forget that the kids are people. And we just think that we have to kind of tell them what to do and they have to do it. But, in previous generations that actually worked, but it just doesn't work in ours.
Right.
The kids are smarter. They just have much more of an independent streak. They just, they trust themselves, and maybe that's a good thing, but more than they would trust us in a lot of cases. And we kind of have to know how to, hone that in with them without letting them go wild, but at the same, in other words, respecting that aspect of them, but still kind of being able to tell them what needs to be told also. Right. And there is a balance in that. But when we get too caught up in you need to listen to me, then the kid stops listening is basically what happens.
So let me ask you this. So, here's a question for you. So what do you think prevents people from finding themselves? What do you think some things, maybe 2 or 3 things that keep people from finding who they are, or finding the road, or getting on the road to find themselves?
I don't think they're looking. I don't think they know to look.
Okay.
I think they get an idea of who they are based on childhood experience, based on habits they formed over childhood, and they decide that those behaviors define them, right? And unfortunately, in this country, we have so many labels. We have a label for everyone, and we almost force people to conform to that label, even though they might have they might have an eating disorder, right? But they're not. They are not an eating disorder. They have an eat, right? I have a shirt, but I'm not a shirt.
Right.
Right? I wear a shirt, but I can change my shirt anytime I want. Right?
Right.
I can decide this shirt is ugly and I would like to put on something that's more flattering. And I can actually do that because we have free will. And what happens is that's really taken away from us on a certain level, because now again, I'm not saying that if someone has an eating disorder, we shouldn't help them. But the question is, how do we help them?
Right.
Do we help them by keeping them in the label and saying, you're always going to have an eating disorder, right?
Right.
No, you're not an eating disorder. You don't have to have an eating disorder, right? I have a girl that I worked with anorexia. She was with different doctors for 2 years. Within 3 months, she was done. And 2 years later, she also just got married. She's done.
So she started eating food, then got married, huh?
She started eating. She gained a few pounds. She looked beautiful. And within a year or two, it's already 3-4 years since I worked with her, and she's fine, and I never told her to eat. I never once told her to eat.
So how did you help her?
But
I mean, with that particular condition.
We really talked about, if you look in the book, there's something called the 3 principles, and it's just basically, where does experience come from?
Okay.
What makes me feel what I feel, right? Why do I feel anything?
Okay,
so
well,
is it the outside world that makes me?
Well, let's go back. Let's go back just a little. So you said the 3 principles, because I want to make sure that the audience get this as well. So
yes.
What are those 3 principles that you're sharing with us now?
So the 3 principles is really just a concept that we're going to break down in three different words.
Okay.
And each word has its own description, but it's basically really the way the psychological mind, the psychological life works.
Okay.
Right. So there's it's called mind, consciousness, and thought.
Okay.
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 So what these basically tell us is that we're always experiencing life from what we call an inside-out perspective. We think, right? We are taught that we experience life from what we call outside in. So let me explain what that is.
Okay.
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 So outside in means like this: my circumstances, the people in my life, my money, my weight, my job, my kid screaming, my kid not screaming, my husband or wife being nice to me, all that affects how I feel.
Okay.
And if my spouse is mean to me, I have no choice but to be upset and hurt, right?
Okay.
And if I'm, if I can't afford to go out for dinner and I like to go out for dinner, then I have no choice but to feel disappointed and upset, right?
Right.
Now, here's the thing. So you tell me, I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
A person that, I'm just going to give like a silly example, but like that wants to go out for dinner and they can't. Are they upset for 3 hours straight? Or they may be upset and then they watch something funny on TV and they start laughing and they're not upset anymore. Or at a certain point, they just get another idea in their head, which is like, whatever, you know what? Maybe one day, maybe next week we'll be able to go out for dinner, and the feeling changes, right?
Okay.
So does anyone get stuck in one feeling, or does the feelings vary?
Well, the feelings probably vary based on the circumstances, right? A lot of times for people.
Well, wait, but the circumstance didn't change. She still couldn't go for dinner.
Right, that's true.
But yet her feelings changed.
That's true too.
So how'd that happen? Because if the circumstance is going to dictate my feeling, then my feeling can't change until the circumstance changes.
Right. That's true.
But meanwhile, if you look into your own life, or anyone in the audience, there's many times that their circumstances didn't change and their feelings did.
That's true. You're right.
True? Right?
That's right.
So it can't be the circumstance. It has to be something else that's driving the feeling.
Okay. So what is it?
If it was the circumstance, I would be locked into a feeling, right? If it's raining outside, I'm not going to say it's not raining. It's raining. There's a fact. It's raining.
Correct.
But what could change my feelings about the rain, right? I could wake up and go, no, it's raining. I hate this. And then 5 minutes later, I could go, oh, you know what? But I could go to the gym now, and I wouldn't have been able to go to the gym because I would have had to get to this thing if it wasn't. Oh, wow, I'm so happy it's raining. It's still raining.
Right.
like nothing changed. But what changed? So that's one of the principles called thought. Okay? Our thinking is what we feel.
I like that.
We only feel what we're thinking in the moment we're thinking it.
Right.
Because the second our thought changes, our feelings change.
So,
right?
Right. Because the feelings follow the thoughts. That's what you're saying.
Right.
In a nutshell.
Yes. The thought and the feeling kind of happen at the same time. Right?
Right.
Now, so that would be one of the principles, thought.
Okay.
The second principle, and there's no order to the principles, it's just the second principle would be consciousness. Consciousness is my awareness of what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, right? A lot of times people don't even know why they're feeling what they're feeling, right? Sometimes they'll wake up and they'll be like, I'm just so down today and I really don't know why. And it's because there's a certain thought in their head. It's not because of the weather or because this didn't happen. one of the things I used to do before I understood this was if I woke up in a low mood, which is also part of the book, we talk about mood.
Mm-hmm.
I would start trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and then start figuring out what of my circumstances were wrong, because obviously if I'm down, then something's wrong in my life, right?
Correct.
But wrong. If it's not the circumstances and it's just my thinking, I don't have to fix anything.
Right.
And I have much less to do.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Right. Because what you're saying, because I want the audience to get it too, is that my thinking will impact my feelings all the time, and at least the majority of the times. And what of consciously, I can change that. Like I said, I can be upset that it's raining because I was going to have a picnic, but then I end up having a picnic and seeing my favorite show on television because I didn't go out. So it ended up, I always loved this show, but I would have missed the show if I would have been out at the picnic. But I end up or talking on the phone to someone, a friend or something like that, or doing something for a relative, or speaking to my parents or something like that. But if it didn't rain, I'm out at the picnic. So maybe because I enjoy talking to my parents, my feelings have changed. And then my feelings about what rain does. And then that's where I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, that's where I think triggers come from. You know, if every time it rained, I was upset, then when it get cloudy, I can just get upset and don't even know why I'm upset, because something, the clouds have triggered this inside me to a certain degree.
But what's fun about triggers, when see, here's the thing about thought. So follow me on this, and you tell me if you agree, because I'm not here to tell anyone anything.
Right.
I'm just here to bring people to get what I call curious. Right?
Okay.
Like you can look into your own head and the world itself and see if I'm right.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Go ahead.
It's just, the problem is no one ever asked us to look, so we never knew to, right? But the second someone starts looking, it's right there. Right? It's really right there. It's crazy, but it's right there.
Right.
So here's the thing. So you tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, I don't know, your daughter walks in and she's in a bad mood and she's rude to you. Not that she would ever be rude to you. It's a hypothetical.
Right.
But she's rude to you.
Okay.
And your first reaction, okay, now you tell me if you asked for this reaction, okay?
Okay.
Your first reaction was anger and how dare you speak to me like that. And then a few minutes later, you didn't say to yourself, I'm going to calm down now. But a few minutes later, you calm down and your thinking shifted to, let me go find out what her problem is. Like, maybe she really had a bad day, or she needs to, let me just go find out, it's not like her. Let me see what she's up to.
Right.
Right. Now, do we consciously change our thinking? Or, because I'll just say this. If I was in charge of my thinking, my head would look real different. How about you?
Right. Okay. That's true. It would, right? Because you have a different set of thoughts there, wouldn't you, all the time? Right. I'm with you.
I would only have happy, glowing, nice thoughts. I would never have a mean thought about anyone. I would never have I would never feel mad. I would never feel sad.
That's true.
Because what's the whole positive thinking thing? Is be positive and you feel better because you're thinking. Try staying positive for more than 10 minutes. You can't, because it's too much work. It's too much work.
So you got to focus too hard, right?
You got to focus. And you know what? You can't, because you know what happens? The second you stop focusing, the mind goes, right? The mind goes.
Right.
So let's talk about who's in charge of the mind, because that's a big question. Well, if I'm not in charge of my mind, who is?
Okay.
Right?
So
really, who is?
Okay, who is then?
So that's the third principle, which is what we're going to call mind.
Okay.
Okay. So it goes like this. So I'm just going to introduce it. I need a couple minutes to just introduce this concept. Okay. So if I ask the greatest scientist in the world how the sun rises and sets, could he tell me?
Well, I guess, yeah, right. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
But can he make it? Can he make the sun rise and set?
No. Oh, no, not at all.
No. He can tell me, he's very smart, and he can tell me everything. But
Correct.
he can't actually do anything, right? The weatherman can tell me when a storm's coming, but they can't stop the hurricane, right? Believe me, if they could, they would.
That's true. You're
But
right.
they can't.
Right.
So scientists and people, we all know that there's something. You want to call it the universe, you want to call it God, you want to call it an energy behind life, a battery, it's been called. I've even heard it called a battery. There's something powering up this universe, right?
Okay.
Allowing the sun to rise and set, allowing the storms to come, the clouds to fill, the rain to come down, the wheat to grow. I mean, all we do is stick a seed in the ground and water it.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we got this tree, and we don't know why, right? We can know why, but sometimes the tree doesn't grow, right? And we're like, we did everything right, and it didn't grow.
Right.
So we can't actually make anything happen. It's the same with the body.
Okay.
Now, medically, yes, we can go to the doctor and he can fix us. But if the doctor could really fix you on your own, on his own, without this universe helping, no one would die. Is that not true?
That's true. You're right. Yeah, no one would die. You're right about
true?
that. Right. Because everybody be fixed, right? Everybody still be here.
Everybody still be here. No one would die of cancer, God forbid.
It'd be
right?
a crowded place, wouldn't it?
It would be a very crowded place. So there has to be something that's kind of in this with us, let's say it that way, and almost overseeing it, because I can have two, and I'm sorry to use such a extreme example, but I feel like I want to prove the point that way. I can have two cancer victims at stage 4 in the pancreas, and
right.
one does chemo and survives, and one doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So why didn't they both survive, or both not? Same exact cancer, same exact treatment.
Right.
What did one do and one didn't, right? That's statistics. Statistically, it should either be 100% or 0.
That's true. Right.
What's 90% mean? Right? Like, what happened to the other 10? Right.
Okay.
So there's something in this universe with us. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Now the body, basically, like we talked about the cut, right? Even if you set the bone still has to heal itself. Even if you give the chemo, the body still has to jump in and kind of do its thing.
Right.
So this energy is kind of doing the body's thing, right? We're doing our part, and this energy is doing its part.
Right.
Now, so the body basically functions, right? You don't pump your heart every morning, do you?
No, not me. I've never done that one.
Right. So I don't know. My heart pumps. Who's the battery behind the pump, right? Who's the battery behind the muscles and the arteries and the veins and all the body's working, right? Again, the doctor can tell me how it works, but he can't actually make it work.
Right. Right. I understand.
So the same energy is behind the nature and the body. Now, what's the function of the mind? What is the function of the mind? So I would say it's to think, right?
You said to change?
Isn't that the function of Isn't this the function of the mind, to think?
To think, right. Okay, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that same energy that's behind my body working, isn't it behind my mind working?
Okay, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't it go together? The mind is. People forget that the head is attached to the body. We think psychology is its own thing.
They are attached to each other, aren't they?
It's part of the same system.
Right. Part of the same system. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the function of the mind is the thinking. So this same energy is in charge of those thoughts flowing. So now, where do we come in then? Where do I come in? If I'm stuck with all this thinking that hurts me sometimes, sometimes my thinking hurts me when it's angry, when it's negative, when it's jealous, it hurts me. Right?
Okay.
So what do I do with it? So here's how I think. This is how it works. And people, again, don't take my word. You got to go out there and you got to look. Okay. That's hence the name, The Road to Finding Yourself.
Right.
Right?
I like that name.
You have to find this.
Right.
Yeah. So, and you, again, you tell me if this is true, right?
Okay.
I get an initial thought, a trigger, and I notice it, consciousness. I notice it. Oh my God, I'm so angry. Am I stuck with it?
Well, no.
I know it now.
Right, you know it now. So
now I may not be able to change the thought, right? Because I could change the thought for a minute, but then it comes back. Remember how we talked about if you stop focusing on it,
right,
it'll come back.
Right.
But guess what I can do?
What's that?
I could not act on it.
Okay. That makes sense.
I could be angry and I could do nothing.
Right.
And I could wait for this energy behind life to kind of let my thoughts flow. Just like the blood is flowing.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
My thoughts are also flowing. How do I know? Because we just talked about when your daughter came in and was rude, and without any help from you, your thoughts shifted and you felt differently. Right? Sometimes it could be the opposite. Someone could come in and angry, and I could be good at first and understanding, and then a few minutes later, I could get this thought like, how dare they?
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm fuming.
Yes.
And you're like, what? Where'd that come from? You know?
Right.
I was so happy being happy.
and now I'm angry. Right now, I'm ready to fight somebody.
Right. I didn't want that.
Right.
But a lot of times, what happens is when we have the awareness of what's going on in our own head, we have an ability to really think before we do, right? Make sure before we act. You know, one of my clients said to me once, it was so cute, but it was so true. She goes, is that why the therapist told me to wait 10 seconds before I talk when I'm angry? I said, it's probably the initial reason they came up with something like that. Because they realize if you wait 10 seconds or 20 seconds, your thought shifts a little bit.
Right.
You might still be angry, but it probably won't be as intense.
Right. That's
because
true.
Something's going to shift in you, and you're just going to see something differently. And here's the thing. We see the world based on what we're thinking in the moment we're seeing it. So when we're angry, we see the world in a very angry way.
Yeah, that's true.
Negative, condescending, people are out to get me. I'll get them before they get me, right? That's anger.
Yeah.
So when I'm in that emotion, the thoughts that come with that emotion are destructive, honestly, right?
Yeah,
they are.
True. That's right.
Right?
Okay.
Now the thoughts that come with, benefit of the doubt or just curiosity, right? Someone has a problem. They're curious. What is to be angry? Right? Now, you might be angry, but you have an ability to stop and wait for a window of opportunity when that anger passes, because it will come back.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah.
And in that moment of clarity, of a better feeling, you're going to get a better idea. Yeah. And that idea is going to help you much more than the angry idea. But here's where it gets a little tricky. The better idea usually is harder.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
When you say that, Melissa, when you say that, a lot of times, and it's the unique ability of the human being that something can happen and subconsciously or unconsciously, whatever word we want to use, we have this unique ability to pause first. Unlike a dog, you pull the dog tail, immediately the dog doesn't think like, hey, did someone pull my tail? Should I snap at them? Right. It just does something on instinct. It doesn't have a time to pause and say, are they playing with me? Did they mean that? Are they trying to do something else? With humans, we have the unique ability to pause first. Now, some of our pausing is longer than others, right? Some people pause for one whole second, right? Some of us can pause a little bit longer, right? But we have that unique ability because someone can say, hey, that's a bad hat you have on. Now, when you listen to that, a bad hat, I mean, bad is not usually good, right? But based on what I have on, that's a bad hat. A bad hat might be a good hat. That's good. That's a bad hat.
Yeah, it could be a nice, it could be a compliment. Yeah,
it would be a compliment. So I have the ability to pause. I can look at the demeanor of the person, see how they're looking when they said, that's a bad hat. And all these things can happen in a matter of seconds, and I can react or respond a certain way based on all those things going on, which is really a lot of power that we have, and then we like so we don't look and try to find it. It's a Chinese proverb that said, when a student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And I think a lot of times, like you said, people don't. I don't know if we ever encourage as young people growing up. Maybe some are. I don't know anybody on the planet. Have a lot of us aren't encouraged at 8 years old, 12 years old. Find yourself. 20 years old, find yourself. Yeah. And sometimes we never do. Some people live a whole life of 70, 80 years and never find themselves and never was encouraged on doing so. And then I think this is what I like about what you've written and the work that you do. a lot of people, if they have been encouraged, they don't know how to do it.
Right.
They don't
Right.
understand how, okay, how do I find myself? I mean, I've been a school teacher or a police officer or whatever for so many years. They automatically think that's me. I'm that
Right.
title. I'm that
Right.
label. I'm the fat kid, or I am
Right.
this, right? So, hey, I always been a fat kid, man. When I was 10 years old, I was a fat kid. You know, I've just been a fat kid, right? So now they're 40
Right.
years old, and that justifies why I'm 450 pounds. Because hey,
Right.
everybody called me the little chubby kid. I was the fat kid. I was the chubby girl. So now I got to still be the chubby girl at 40. You see,
Right.
even though
Right.
I'm really not the chubby girl, but that's the label. I took it. You stuck it on me. I'm running with it. And that's what I tell people. If they
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, how do you look? Well, I'm chubby.
Right.
I'm
Right.
fat. I'm the chubby girl. Now,
Right.
based on who you're
Right.
talking to, they may say, well, you need to eat some, right? Because
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not really chubby, but
100%. Yes.
so I like
Yes.
what you're
Yes.
saying about the thinking and the pausing. I use the word pausing, but that's pretty much how
Yes.
I articulated it
It
based on
is
what you
a
said.
pause.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, I sometimes had to pause for a month
Yeah.
because sometimes I've been in a problem and the answer wasn't so forthcoming. Right.
Right.
And you know what I realized? I'd rather wait than sometimes we get impatient. So we feel like, let's just do something. But if you do the wrong something, then you might make it worse.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, and again, I guess I got to bring the universe back into this. Sometimes there's a plan of, if I'm driving from New York to New Jersey, it takes an hour.
Okay.
It takes an hour.
Yeah.
I don't care if I know the way. It takes an hour.
Right.
So if I decide it should only take 5 minutes, then I'm going to start making wrong turns
Yeah.
because I'm in the wrong place. In other words, my vision and my reality of what's real is
Mhm.
off
Yeah.
because it takes an hour.
Yeah.
And me getting nervous and thinking it should only, and sometimes we don't know how long, God forbid again, but if somebody is sick, like sometimes the treatment is a 6-month treatment and you got to do it. You got to be in it for 6 months.
Right.
And it's not positive thinking or whatever might make you feel better in the moment, but that's what I mean by life on life's terms. Like we don't always know how long something's going to be a problem for us or how long a circumstance has to last. Child raising is 40 years sometimes.
Right. That's
You
true.
know what I'm saying? Like, you're not having a baby and 5 minutes later, it's really a lifetime because you're always someone's mother. If you have a child, you're always the parent.
That's true.
So
That's
they're
true.
always gonna, and if you're a good parent, they're gonna come back to you. It's gonna be your best friend.
Yeah.
So right. So you're not gonna just say I'm done.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. So you 18, I'm done, right?
Right. You're 18 now. Okay. You might say I can't financially support you in that, but emotionally, your kid at 21 is, hurt. You're going to be hurt with them, right?
That's
but
true.
You could be hurt with them, which is sometimes is our wisdom because we want to empathize with people and we want to, sometimes it's tough love, but sometimes it's a hug. You know what I'm saying? And crying with them.
That's true.
And that's where our wisdom comes in, which we said a little bit about wisdom, but we have a natural ability to be present is, I guess, the best word to say.
Yeah.
And be in the moment with ourselves and with someone else. And I always tell my clients, and the funny thing is, I had to see this for myself. You could say anything to anyone as long as you're in the right state of mind. Because if you're in a very loving, giving state of mind, and you tell somebody, you need to lose weight, let's say somebody really does need to lose weight, and you say it, but you say it from that place of really love for them, they'll take it from you, right? But when you say it in a place of judgment, but I want to help you, and I'm telling you need to lose weight, no one's listening, right? That's when it becomes hurtful.
Right.
Right?
I agree.
And I am sometimes so mean to my clients, and they crack up. They're like, "Why are you able to say that to me? And I love you more." Like, and I can't wait to come back. And I'm like, because the truth is, that I really love you, and I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to criticize you. That's not That's not what I need to do. That doesn't help you.
Right. That's
but
true.
You also came to me for the truth. And sometimes, and again, we have to find the truth together. I'm not here to tell somebody else their truth because, this is another thing we talk about in the book, but there's something we call separate realities, which is you kind of spoke to that when you said, I see myself as fat. The person sees himself as fat, and somebody else could say, you need to eat.
Right.
Right? Yes. We don't realize, but we don't all live in the same world.
We're not looking at the same thing the same way, right?
Yeah, my psychological world could really look very different than yours, which means I might see a black car and love it, and you might see a black car and hate it.
Right.
Right. And you might see this type of car and say that symbolizes to me poverty, and I would never drive in such a car. And I could be like, that symbolizes to me humility and not needing to keep up with the Joneses, and I love driving that car. And you're like, now here's where it gets a little complicated, and this is where relationships need to know this, because when relationships know this, relationships solidify, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find out what my partner, spouse, friend is thinking.
That's true.
Because they may not be thinking what I am. Yeah. So I'll give you a funny example.
Okay.
So I was talking to my mother.
Okay.
And this is years ago, but I must have been asking her something, and she decided to give me advice.
Okay.
And it wasn't advice that I was going to take, because it wasn't for me. It didn't resonate with me.
Right.
Like, I felt like it's good advice, but it's not going to work for me.
Okay.
So she got upset because she kept saying, you're not listening to me. And I kept saying, of course I'm listening to you. I hear every word you're saying. And she's going, you're not listening. You're not. And I kept saying, I'm listening. And then I realized that we were both getting angry. And I know when I'm angry, something's wrong.
Right.
Right? Because that's not wisdom. With anger clouds vision. It doesn't clear it.
Oh, I like that.
Stop.
Say that again.
Yeah,
say that again so the audience can hear that.
Anger clouds vision.
Okay.
It does not clear the vision.
I like that. Anger clouds vision. Yeah. It doesn't clear vision. Okay, I like that.
The vision.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I just stopped, and it came to me, right?
Okay.
Energy behind life gave me a good idea, I thought. And I said, Mom, could you please define listening? So she said, listening means I tell you what to do and you do it. So I said, oh, okay, then you're right. I'm not listening to you. I said, my definition of listening to you was I heard what you said and I took it into account.
Right.
I said, so we're both fighting and we're both right. I said, let's not use the word listening. I'm going to start saying, I hear you.
Right.
If I'm going to do what you want, I'm going to say I'm listening. And if I'm not going to do what you want, I'm going to say I hear you.
Right.
And we never had that problem again, because I realized we were something was missing. We weren't saying, you can't fight, I'm listening, no, I'm not listening, when clearly, like, if we are defining the word the same way, there wouldn't be a fight. Either I am or I'm not.
That's true.
But the fact that we were both saying we are, right?
That's true. Uh-huh.
So I do that a lot with my husband, with my kids, I'm like, wait, I'm starting to get annoyed because you're arguing with me and I'm not sure why. Can you tell me what you hear me saying? Right? Tell me what do you think I'm saying to you? And they'll be like, you're saying this, and I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. Let me say it differently.
Right.
Obviously, the words I'm using mean something different to you, and people don't think like that, because people think that everyone thinks like them.
Yeah, that's true. Right? I think you're absolutely correct about that, Melissa, because, a lot of times as I gotten older, and I always use the example, if I say the color blue and I'm thinking midnight blue, but you're thinking sky blue, we're going to have a problem with communicating, because I keep saying blue, midnight, blue, but I never say midnight blue. I'll just say blue because that's my favorite color. Then you buy me a shirt that's sky blue.
Right.
And I said, I don't wear sky blue. I wear midnight blue. Right? That's what I wear, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of times people don't define things clearly with themselves, for one, and then they don't define it with others, and they don't make it a practice. I think for me, I had to make it a practice that when you said that, what do you mean by that? When you say finding yourself, what does that mean? Does it mean I go look in the closet? Do I go look in the garage? I mean, what do you mean by finding myself? And because people take it different ways. I remember one time I was doing a workshop, Melissa, and obviously I've written a few books, so I gave two people a different book, and I said, okay, read page 54, the first paragraph.
Mhm.
And one lady read the first paragraph on page 54, and I said, okay, you read page 54. And she read a paragraph on page 54, and they both sound different. But I said, if you walk up to both of them and said, did you read page 54? And both of them were right. They just weren't in the same book. They had
Right.
done all the instructions right. They read the first paragraph, page 54,
Right.
but it sounds so different. And no one in the audience said that it sounded the same, because it wasn't the same, because it was two different books. And I think sometimes when we deal with people, we never sometimes say, get on the same page. Let's get on the same page. But
Yeah.
sometimes we need to look at the cover of the book and say, wait, do we have the same book before we get on the same page? Right.
And it's funny, like when I'm with clients, especially with clients, I mean, I do it at home also, but every time we talk a little bit, I'll stop and I'll think, I said, I know this is going to sound weird, but can you just tell me what I've said to you this last the last half hour? And they'll be like, I heard it. I understood. I said, I just want to make sure you heard what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they didn't. And I'll be like, okay, you 90% is for sure what I said. I just want to clarify this one point. Not that they're wrong, because they're not wrong. They just heard what they heard.
Right.
So I'll be like, and that's also part of the reason that I guess I get such a great rapport with people, because I get to know them, right? I need to hear, part of, I think, any good therapist or life coach is to get to know how the person thinks, right? How that person, get to know that person. But you need to get to know how the person thinks, because just getting to know a person by who she thinks she is not who she is.
Right.
Right? So many times the client will be like, well, I'm the type that hates that. And then I'll start listening to her words and I'll go, you don't hate that. Just look at all these stories you just told me where you love that. And they're like, what? Oh my God, I never realized. I do. I must really like that. And I'll be like, you're so miserable over this thing, but like, look at the 10 stories you just told me. And they're like, who knew that? Right? Because they don't listen to themselves.
Right.
They missed it.
Yeah, that's true.
They didn't get it. And a lot of times what I do with clients so many times, especially with the ones that are very overwhelmed and stressed,
mm-hmm.
I just reiterate what they've told me of how they cope with things so beautifully. Seriously, people are not as screwed up as they think they are. That's the truth. They're just not. Right. They cope so well. Their wisdom is always bubbling within them, and they just don't realize it.
Why do you think? But why do you think?
So
why do you think that happens? Do you think it's because of the environment? You think it's because of people we around that we don't see it?
I think it's because we think the circumstance is what's going to cause an emotion. So when we see a crazy circumstance or a busy circumstance, we just assume that we're supposed to feel something and to match the circumstance, right? That's what I think.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden you start showing them, well, wait a second, you don't even feel that.
Right.
You don't even feel that overwhelmed. And they're like, oh my God, like 90% of my day, I'm fine. But we only pay attention to the 10% of the day that we're not fine. That's the difference.
Do you think that has something
forget.
to do? Okay. Do you think that has something to do with maybe my environment, my culture, my neighborhood, my family?
It has to do with everything.
Okay.
Everything, because it's all habit. So it could be you grew up in a house where your mother was always feeling overwhelmed when she was very busy. So you just think, I'm supposed to also. It could be that you grew up in a house that everything was calm and you had thoughts of like, she should be more nervous. Like, this is something weird. Like, this is a lot. And then you feel like, I want to be, I think that's the right way to handle it. But when you're thinking something's the right or the wrong way, you're not in the moment.
Well, that's interesting.
Because now you're in a script.
Oh, okay. That's good.
But, right? Isn't that true?
That's true.
But in the moment, you might have a moment of panic and a moment of happy. You might get both.
Right.
And you will.
Yeah.
You will get all.
Yeah.
The question is, if I can just kind of stay in the moment and see what I'm thinking, I'll actually be able to see what I'm feeling. But what we very innocently do is we feel the good moments, but we don't pay attention to them, so we forget about them.
Right.
Or we think they're less than they are. I'll give you a funny, not a funny example, but it's a really good example, which I love this example. So I was dealing with a college student,
Okay.
And he suffered from depression. So I have a very different take on depression than I guess society. I'm not so afraid of it.
Okay.
Right? Because
Okay.
to me, it's just a thought.
Okay.
It's a thought.
Okay.
Right? It's a mood. It's a down thought. But it doesn't have to stop you. It doesn't have to unless you want it to.
Okay.
Unless you think it has to. So I started talking to this college student, and he tells me, some days I can stop the depression, and some days I can't. So I know he can never stop it because he's not in charge of his thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
I said, can you I said, take me through the days. On a day when you can't stop the depression, what happens? He said, when I can't stop the depression, I get up in the morning, I feel horrible, I stay in bed.
Okay.
Good. What happens on the days that you stop the depression? I get up in the morning, I feel horrible. I say to myself, too bad, get up. You need to get to class. He said, I get up and I go to class. I said, did you feel better? Not really, but I feel like I'm not letting this thing stop me. And enough of it. Like, you know what? You could feel not so great sometimes and still go.
Right.
So I said, oh, so you didn't stop the depression. He goes, oh, I didn't stop the depression. I said, and how's the day? He goes, the truth is there's good moments in the day and bad moments. I can't say I'm depressed the entire day.
Right.
So when we started talking about thought, he was like, yeah, I guess there are times my thoughts changed and then they go back. And he goes, oh, I never realized that I never stopped the depression. I thought I was doing something to stop it. He said, I wasn't. I was just ignoring it. He said, I was just ignoring it. I wasn't allowing it to control me. I said, that's all you did. I said, you just didn't realize that's what you were doing. My job is to point out what you're already doing because you already know what to do.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I only spoke to this kid 3-4 times. He really didn't need me after that. And he was just like, I spoke to him like a few months later. I just to check on him and to see what he's doing. He's like, you don't even know. I started this course and that course and I took this job and I'm like, how's the depression? He goes, it's there. He said, but the truth is, so what? He said, what? He said, I would love it not to be there. Right. He said, obviously. He said, but why does it have to define me and force me to be less than I'm capable of being? Okay. I can, I always tell people this. Okay. I don't know if you cook at all, but if somebody's a caterer or they're just having a family dinner and they burn their hands, are they going to stop cooking because they're in pain? No. Or are they going to have the pain in their hand and continue on?
They're going to continue on.
They're going to continue on, right? Because you know what? Life hurts. And sometimes things hurt. And I don't want it to sound like I'm belittling depression, but I also don't like legitimizing it. And I'm not talking to the people that are saying, like, if someone called me and said that I can't even get out of bed, I've worked with those people. Right. I really have. And let me tell you something, they get out of bed. Okay. And they get out of bed in a way that when you're legitimizing that depression and telling them they're almost a slave to it, they can't get out because they believe that thinking.
Wow, I'm not meaning to cut you off, Melissa. We're closing it out. I want you to just say how people can get in contact with you, because I want people to, because you got a lot of good information. But give your email, website and everything, so people can connect with you as well.
Okay. So my email is very simple. lifecoachingbymelissa.com is my website. There's a lot of blogs, a lot of videos, a lot of free information on that website. And on that website is to contact me. Right. My phone number on that website.
Okay, and they can contact you there?
Yes.
Okay. So we have to...
best for me is to call me.
Okay.
I really like it better when people use that phone number.
Okay.
If they don't use the phone number, they can email me.
All right, Melissa. But we got to wrap it up. My producer said I got to get off there. So I appreciate you coming to the show.
Much. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Melissa, and we'll talk to you again. We'll see you next week on the Great Author Show on Intellectual Radio with Dr. Anthony L. Again. Have a good night.